8.2, we began learning how to graph lines. In 8.3, we're going to give you a way to do it a little quicker. You need to realize that you can graph a linear equation quickly by using only 2 points to draw a line. It is often convenient to choose points where the line crosses the axes. The x-coordinate of a point where a graph crosses the x-axis is called the x-intercept. The y-coordinate would be the same thing and called the y-intercept. To find the x-intercept of a line, you would substitute 0 for y in the line's equation and then solve for x. You will do the opposite process to find the y-intercept, substituting 0 in for the x value. So let's go ahead and try this method. We want to find the intercepts of the graph of the linear equation 3x minus 2y equals 6. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute 0 in for y. So I'm going to leave my 3x, excuse my writing, this should end soon, minus 2, and I'm going to put in 0 for my y. Okay? I know this is supposed to equal 6. So if y was 0, 2 times 0 takes this term out of the equation. We're left with 3x. We could have said minus 0, but then we would add 0 to each side, and there's really no point of subtracting or adding the 0. So we have 3x equals 6. So now we have our value for x equaling 2. Now, if we're going to write that as coordinate points, our coordinate points are going to be 2, 0, because we just said, oh, that's an ugly 0. We just said that x was going to be 2, and our y value that we had substituted in was 0. This is kind of input-output as well. When we input 0, the output is that we solve for x equaling 2. Now we need to find the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, we want to let x equal 0. Same process. Let's change colors to really make sure we notice this. Same process except for we're substituting the 0 in for the x value this time. So 3 times 0 equals negative 2y. Is 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 6. Again, this term, 3 times 0, would end up equaling 0. So our next step is just that we have 2y, and it's a negative 2y, equals 6. We need to multiply both. My goodness, we need to divide both sides by a negative 2. I'm talking faster than my fingers moving. Negative 2 over negative 2 equals 1. So we have y, 1y, and 1y equals negative 3. Positive divided by a negative is going to give us a negative. We have another coordinate point. That means this point is going to be 0. X was 0. When x was 0, y is negative 3. So we have 2 coordinate points. Let's go ahead and copy those points and move those to the next page where I have a graph waiting for us. Oops, that is not the copying that we just did. Apparently I did not get that copied. I selected it and didn't copy it. Let's try it one more time. Copy that. And there we go. I have our 2 points now, except for they've landed in the wrong spot. It's really being stubborn, isn't it? 2, 0, and 0, 3. As we said, 2, 0 was going to give us our x-intercept, because if we go 2 to the right, it's a positive, and 0 up, I get my first point, 2, 0. My next point is going to be 0, not moving to the left or right at all, and I'm going to go to -3, so that's going to be I'm moving down. Now, if we connect the dots, we could say here, we are going to get a line. Our line is going to have arrows on both sides because it's going to go on and on forever. I'm going to see if I can hit these. Oh, I'm doing pretty good for first try. Missed just a little bit. So when I draw my line, this is representing my linear equation. And my linear equation then shows me all the other possible solutions that would work in my original equation, 3x minus 2y equals 6. So any of the points on the line here that my line crosses through, any of those points, would be xy solutions that would work in that equation and make it a true equation. So writing and graphing an equation. This time we're looking at a word problem, and our word problem is that we want to find out about canoeing. You are canoeing along a 12-mile stretch of the river. You travel 4 miles per hour when paddling and 2 miles per hour when you take a break and you're just drifting. Let's give that a double line if we're talking about drifting, and the single line we'll keep for paddling, and our total distance is 12 miles. So we want to write and graph an equation describing your possible paddling and drifting times. Obviously, if we paddle more, we're going to move through the miles faster and drift less. If we drift a lot, then we're going to go a little bit slower, and because we're not doing the fast movement that paddling would make. There's going to be lots of different possibilities. So it says give 3 possible combinations of paddling and drifting times. So we're going to go ahead and we need to set up our equation. We have x is going to be our paddling time and y is going to be our drifting time. All right? So paddling time we just said was going to be x, and our coefficient is going to be the rate in which we are paddling, and we're paddling at 4 miles per hour. So we have the coefficient of 4. We're going to add that to the drifting rate, which was 2 miles per hour, but we don't know how many miles we're going to go, so the drifting rate is going to remain a variable, y. We have 2 different types of variables, a paddling time and a drifting time, but together they're going to give us the total distance, and that the word problem told us we were moving 12 miles, a stretch of 12 miles on the river. So now we have a simple equation. Taking that equation, we're going to find the x and y intercepts. Let's go ahead and do a quick little copy and paste. Be nice if we could do this on our papers, wouldn't it? We have our stubborn equation of 4x plus 2y equals 12. Again, to find x and y intercepts, first of all, to find the x-intercept, we'll go ahead and we'll set y as 0. So we have 4x, this is the variable we want to solve for first, plus 2, and we're going to make that at 0. We're not going, that means for y 0, we're not going up or down on the graph, so we would be staying right on the x-axis. So 4x plus 0, so let's just do 4x is going to equal 12. So my x is going to equal 3. Divide both sides by 4, my x is going to equal 3. That means I have a point of x being 3, and we had substituted in 0 for y. We're going to do the same thing, this time substituting x. We're substituting 0 for x. That means we're not going to move either to the left or the right on our grid, but we want to find out how we're going to move up or down. That's our y-axis. So 4 times 0 plus 2y is going to get us again the 12-mile stretch. So we have 2y is equal to 12. Divide both sides by 2. And we now find out that y, our drifting time, is going to be 6. So again, when x is 0, y is 6. And we end up with 2 coordinate points. Again, connecting 2 points will give us a line. Let's go ahead and copy those, because on the next page, we're going to give ourselves our grid. Okay, so our points are going to be 3, 0, and 0, 6. Again, let's go to 3, 0. That's on the x-axis. That's the x-intercept. And 0, I'm not going to move left to right, but I'm going to move up 6. This is my y-intercept. We want to make a line. I'm going to change it to black. I thought that green one was a little harder to see. And we'll make it a little thicker. And let's see if we get a better first line here. Oh, look at that. That doesn't happen often. So now what they asked us to do was find 3 different possibilities. I found 2 already. I can paddle for 3 hours, and I can rest for 0 hours, or I can not paddle at all, and I can drift for 6 hours. I'm sorry. Yes, drift for 6 hours. And we need to find one more. In looking at my the line that I drew, being that it is on a grid, I can find one more point that is exactly at an intersection. That point, oh, I accidentally grabbed the highlighter instead of the pen. Highlighter might have been kind of hard to see. That point's right here. I looked for a point that on the grid would come right on an intersecting point. This is one more possibility, and X again was my paddling hours. I could paddle for 2 hours. If I do so, I would also get, on the y-axis, 2 hours of drifting time. That seems like maybe the best plan. We have our drifting and our paddling evening out, 2 hours for each of those. All right, so a little bit better than my writing with my finger. The 3 points on the graph are 0, 6, 2, 2, and 3, 0. So you can either not paddle at all. That would mean you are going to drift for 6 hours. That was when y equaled 6. You can paddle for 2 hours and drift for 2 hours, or you can paddle for a total of 3 hours. You'll get your 12-mile stretch of river, but you will not be able to rest at all. So this is the end of 8.3. You learned how to find 2 points, an x-intercept and a y-intercept. By setting each variable to 0, you can find the opposite variable. Then you have coordinate points, 2 of them. Connect them with a line, because that line then shows us with arrows on both sides that there are many different possibilities. Any of the points in the graph that the arrow goes through would be possibilities. We looked at a word problem, found out how to set that up with the information we were given, 4 miles per hour, but we don't know how many hours, so that turned into our time, our variable. 2 miles an hour, our time, multiplied by the time, and then we do know that we travel a total distance of 12. When we have information like that, we can solve for our 2 intersecting points, our x and our y intercepts, and then when we graph it, we can find another intersecting point on the graph as another solution. There would be many, many if we expanded the arrow.